In today's lesson, we're going to spend a little more time multiplying polynomials, and we're going to focus on a specific type in a second, because that's the type that we're going to end up factoring in the next lesson. So remember, when we do this, we want to keep in mind, we want to think about factors and products, right? The factors are the things that you multiply together. Products are the result when you multiply those things together. Because in this lesson, we're going to be multiplying, but in the next lesson, we're going to be going backwards, and going backwards is factoring, right? It's a form of division. But we want to keep that in mind. We want to think, like, what are we getting when we multiply these factors together? Because we want to see those patterns. So the first one's like we saw the other day. The thing I just want to drive home is that we have one factor, negative 5b to the third, and then this whole thing is another factor. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. And it doesn't matter how many terms are inside the parentheses. We can distribute what's outside by as many terms as we want. So we just need to multiply that by the term 4b to the fifth, multiply it by the term negative 2b to the third, multiply it by the term b, and then multiply it by the term negative 11. And again, this could have 100 terms inside the parentheses. It doesn't matter. You can distribute across as many terms as you want. So negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. B to the third times b to the fifth is b to the eighth. Remember, we're not multiplying those. You're thinking, I have b times b, and then another 5. That's 8 of them together, so that's b to the eighth. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. B to the third times b to the third is b to the sixth. Negative 5 times 1, remember, if you want to think about, there's a 1 right there, so negative 5 times 1 is just minus 5. And b to the third times b is b to the fourth. Don't forget that's 4 now. Negative 5 times negative 11 is positive 55, b to the third. Okay? So this was one factor, this was one factor, and this whole thing here is the product. The result that you get when you multiply those factors together is your product. And just remember, just like we can distribute this negative 5b to the third into those parentheses and multiply it against those things, we could pull that back out. And that's what we did in the last lesson. We could take the negative 5b to the third, because we can divide all of these by negative 5, and we can take at least 3 b's from all of them. Remember, this has 4 b's, but we can't take 4 because this doesn't have enough, right? This has 6, and that has 8, but we can't take 6 or 8 because these don't have enough, okay? So we can only take out the negative 5b to the third. Okay, this next one. These are both binomials, 1, 2 terms, 1, 2 terms. So I'm going to write that. In this case, we are multiplying binomials. So multiplying 2 binomials. And I'm writing that out because this is a type that we're going to see a lot. And so we want to really pay close attention to what we're going to end up getting when we multiply together these two factors. Again, this is one factor, and this binomial is another factor. And we want to look at what we get for the product. So the key to multiplying this is realizing that I can distribute each of the terms in the first binomial. So I'm just going to distribute the x. So I'm going to go x times x, and then I'm going to go x times negative 3. And for the time being, we're just pretending that, right, we're not focused on that too. I'm just distributing the x. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is minus 3x. And now I'm just going to distribute the 2, and then remember it's a positive 2. So 2 times x, and then 2 times negative 3. So I'm just distributing each term in my first binomial. So 2 times x is positive 2x, and 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Okay, there's only one last thing to do, and that is to combine these two terms. So minus 3x and 2x are like terms, and I can combine that to minus 1x, or just minus x. So I'll have x squared minus x, remember these two things combine to minus x, minus 6. Okay. The pattern, right? We want to focus on the pattern. We want to look for the pattern. So again, we had two binomials that we multiplied together, and we got this product, which was a trinomial with 1, 2, 3 terms, okay? But look at the terms. So think about where we got everything. X times x got us the x squared. So we just want to think, where did the x squared come from? Well, it came from x times x. I just want to write that down. So that's x times x. That's where that came from. Okay, we have a negative x, but where did that come from? Well, look at 2 minus 3. So we have a negative 1 here, negative 1x, right? But we had 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. So that came from the 1 here. I know that's what I really want to focus on, right, is this 1, the 1x, the negative 1x. That came from 2 minus 3. But look what happens when we multiply the 2 and the minus 3, right? 2 times minus 3 is negative 6. And sure enough, we have a negative 6 there. So let's keep in mind, so I'm going to say 2 times negative 3. Let's keep those ideas in mind and see if that pattern keeps reoccurring, because that's what we're going to need to focus on when we factor, is what are the patterns, okay? All right, so we're going to do a couple more, and we just want to keep an eye on that pattern. So again, we have 2 binomials here, 2 terms of binomial times a binomial, okay? And what we're going to do is we're just going to distribute each term from the first binomial. So we'll do s times s and s times 8, okay? And then we'll worry about the second term. So s times s is s squared. S times 8 is plus 8s, okay? And then we're going to distribute the second one, so 2 times s and 2 times 8. And 2 times s is plus 2s, and 2 times 8 is plus 16. So again, we have like terms right here. We have 8s and 2s, which we need to combine to 10s. So we're going to just do that. S squared plus 10s plus 16. So we started with 2 binomials. Those were our factors. Our product is a trinomial again. 1, 2, 3, like a tricycle. And the idea, or the thing we want to focus on, is that pattern. Did that pattern happen again? So in the first one, when we added these 2 numbers, right, we ended up with this middle number. And sure enough, if we do that, 2 plus 8, we get the 10. And then when we multiply those 2 numbers, 2 times 8, we ended up with the third coefficient in our trinomial. And let's see if that's true. When we do 2 times 8, sure enough, we do get 16. So you want to keep looking at that pattern, right? Is that pattern going to keep reoccurring where if we add these 2 numbers, we get the middle number in our product? And if we multiply these 2 numbers, we get the end number in our product? So let's just see if that happens again. So in this last one, again, I'm going to take the first term and I'm going to distribute it into the second binomial. So n times n is n squared. N times negative 6 is negative 6n. And then I'm going to distribute the second term. And keep in mind, this is a negative 5, so negative 5 times n. Negative 5 times negative 6. So negative 5 times n is negative 5m. Negative 5 times negative 6 is positive 30. Again, I have like terms. I have negative 6n, negative 5n, and if I combine those, I get negative 11n. So let's write that. So n squared minus 11n. Remember that negative 11n is the combination of those. Okay, and plus 30. So now what we were saying was, if I add these, negative 5 and negative 6, I'd get negative 11. And sure enough, right here, that's negative 5 plus negative 6, right? That's negative 11. And then we were saying, well, if we multiply negative 5 and negative 6, we'll get positive 30. And sure enough, that's what we got right there. That positive 30 came from multiplying negative 5. I could write it like this if I want, negative 6. Okay, so we keep seeing this pattern where when we multiply 2 binomials, the first term is just going to be, if that's n and n, it's going to be n squared. If it's an s and s, it's going to be s squared. It's going to be whatever that is, x times x squared. But the middle terms, you're going to end up with, if I add these 2, I'll have the negative 11 there. And if I multiply these 2, that's going to give me my third term. So the last thing we're going to do today is we're going to make up our own. And we're going to predict what we're going to get. And then we're going to see if we actually get that. So let's just make up one on the fly. Let's say we'll go back to x. So let's do x. How about we do a plus 2 in our first binomial? And then in the next one, I'll do x. Let's do a minus. So let's do minus, how about 4? Why not? Okay? So now before we do it, let's actually predict what we're going to get. So we know when we multiply the x's, x times x, we're going to get an x squared. Okay? So we're expecting an x squared. So we're predicting our product. Remember, these are our factors, 1 factor, 2 factors. And we know when we multiply those two, we should get a trinomial with 1, 2, 3 terms. Okay? And so we know that first term is going to be the x squared. Now, what we expect the middle term to be is something where it's the 2 plus the negative 4, right? And then with the x. So 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2. So that's probably going to be negative 2x. Remember, there's still an x in that middle term. If we go back and look at the other ones, it's always a squared and then just an s, right? Just an n. So we expect here to be just an x, okay? And then the third term, we found that was always what we got by multiplying. So this term we would expect, if we multiply 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8, that term would be then negative 8, and no x there, right? If we look at the other ones, it was just a constant, 16, 30, and so here we'll just say negative 8. So we are predicting that we will get this trinomial as our product when we multiply these together based on the patterns that we've been looking at. So let's see if that's true. So to multiply this, I need to distribute the x. So x times x is x squared, and x times negative 4 is negative 4x. I need to distribute the 2, so 2 times x is positive 2x, and 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. I need to combine the negative 4x and the 2x, and that is negative 2x, so bring down the x squared, minus 8, and sure enough, look at what we get. We get exactly what we predicted we would get based on the patterns that we've been seeing.